Excuse me, sir, I think you're lost. The economy section is that way, not here in first class. The words slice through the air at Gate 27 of Denver International Airport, like a blade through silk. Madison Brooks' gate supervisor stands behind her boarding counter with that particular smile, the one that says she's doing everyone a tremendous favor by maintaining order in a chaotic world. Her blonde hair is pulled back in a perfect bun, not a strand out of place. Her blue eyes scanning the waiting area with the precision of someone who believes she can spot trouble from 50 feet away. Her voice carries across the waiting area, loud enough for the 40 passengers scattered around Gate 27 to hear every carefully enunciated syllable. Phones begin emerging from purses and pockets like digital weapons preparing for battle. The businessman in the expensive Armani suit nods approvingly at Madison's words, whispering to his wife about proper procedures and security protocols. A young college student starts recording her thumb, hovering over the live stream button, sensing viral content in the making. Darius Washington, 38 years old, stands perfectly still in his crisp navy blazer and dark slacks. His boarding pass remains steady in his left hand, while his right hand rests calmly at his side. He doesn't flinch, doesn't argue, doesn't even shift his weight. He just watches Madison's performance with the patience of someone who knows something. She doesn't. Something that will change everything in the next 47 minutes. You ever watched someone's career implode because they picked the wrong person to humiliate? You ever seen a single sentence cost a company $67 million in 90 minutes? Because that's exactly what's about to happen here. The announcement crackles overhead, cutting through the tension like a knife. Flight 889 to Chicago O'Hare, now boarding all passengers. Scheduled departure in 52 minutes. Madison examines Darius's boarding pass with theatrical precision that would make Shakespeare proud. She holds it up to the fluorescent light, her manicured fingers running along the edges, with exaggerated care, tilting it at different angles, like she's examining a priceless artifact. Each movement is calculated for maximum humiliation, performed for an audience that's growing by the minute. Phones multiplying like digital witnesses to what's about to unfold. These boarding passes can be surprisingly easy to forge these days. She announces, her voice projecting across the gate area, like she's addressing a congressional hearing on national security. Corporate fraud is becoming alarmingly common in the airline industry. We have to be vigilant about these things. The waiting area falls into that particular kind of silence that happens just before a storm breaks, that electric moment when everyone knows something significant is about to occur. The soft clicks of phone cameras create a rhythmic soundtrack to the unfolding drama, punctuated by the distant hum of the airport's ventilation system and the muffled conversations of passengers in neighboring gates. Darius remains motionless, his hands folded in front of him, his breathing even, and controlled, his expression unchanged despite the public scrutiny. It's the kind of calm that makes Madison's confidence waver for exactly 3 seconds before she doubles down on her performance, her jaw setting with determination. She reaches for her radio with the flourish of someone calling in the cavalry, her finger pressing the button with authority that echoes through the small device. Security to Gate 27. We need immediate assistance with a possible ticket irregularity and potential fraud situation. The businessman whispers to his wife, his voice carrying just far enough for others to hear. Good thing she's being thorough. You can never be too careful these days with all the security threats we face. An elderly woman 2 seats away shakes her head in disgust, but her disapproval isn't directed at Madison's behavior. Her eyes focus on Darius, her lips pursed with the kind of judgment that comes from decades of assumptions about who belongs where and why. A teenager with purple-streaked hair posts to TikTok, her fingers flying across the screen. Discrimination happening. Live at Denver Airport. This is insane. Hashtag gate drama. Hashtag discrimination. This is about to blow up. Within 4 minutes that feel like hours, 2 security officers arrive, their footsteps echoing across the polished airport floor. Officer Martinez, mid-30s, his hand resting casually on his belt, surveys the situation with the trained eyes of someone who's seen every kind of airport drama imaginable. Officer Thompson, younger and eager, already reaches for his notepad pen, poised to document whatever unfolds. "What's the situation here?" Martinez asks, his tone professional but wary, his eyes moving between Madison and Darius, trying to assess the dynamics at play. Madison's voice drips with newfound authority, emboldened by the security presence and the growing crowd of witnesses. Her posture straightens, her chin lifts slightly, and her voice takes on the cadence of someone who believes she's preventing a federal crime. "This gentleman claims to have a first-class ticket to Chicago." She begins pausing for dramatic effect, letting her words hang in the air like an accusation. "But I have serious concerns about its authenticity." Another pause, more deliberate this time, her eyes scanning the crowd to ensure everyone is listening. The paper quality seems inconsistent with our standard printing procedures. The alignment appears slightly off from what I would expect. And frankly, she pauses again, her eyes scanning Darius from head to toe, with the kind of assessment that reduces a human being to a collection of assumptions and prejudices. This doesn't match our typical passenger profile for premium seating accommodations. The crowd murmurs a low buzz of conversation that ripples through the waiting area like disturbed water. More phones appear held high like digital torches in a modern-day witch trial. A live stream counter on someone's phone shows 47 viewers, and climbing steadily, comments beginning to flood the screen in real time. "This is so messed up," someone types. "Sue them," demands another. "Someone help this man," pleads a third viewer. "This is straight-up discrimination," declares a fourth, and the comments continue multiplying with each passing second. Darius finally speaks his voice, cutting through the tension with a clarity that makes everyone lean forward slightly. His words carry no anger, no pleading, no desperation, just a quiet certainty that makes Madison's confidence waver for exactly 3 seconds before she rebuilds her resolve like a wall against doubt. "Miss Brooks," he says, reading her name tag with deliberate care, his pronunciation precise and respectful despite the circumstances. "I can see you're following what you believe to be proper protocol and security procedures. However, I'd suggest you verify my ticket again, perhaps more carefully this time, before we proceed any further with these accusations." As he speaks, Darius reaches into his jacket pocket, with movements so deliberate and controlled, they seem almost choreographed for maximum impact. His fingers find a slim black leather portfolio, and as he opens it slightly, the watching crowd catches glimpses of its contents. A business card holder gleams silver in the terminal lighting. A platinum airline status card reflects the fluorescent bulbs overhead. And something else. Something that makes several people in the crowd lean forward and squint. A sleek black card with minimalist silver lettering catches the terminal's light briefly before he closes the portfolio with the same deliberate precision with which he opened it. Madison's brief hesitation betrays her composure completely. She glimpsed something on that black card, something that planted a seed of doubt deep in her consciousness, something that doesn't fit the narrative she's constructed about this situation. But she's committed now too far into her performance to back down gracefully without losing face in front of 40 witnesses, and counting without admitting that her assumptions might be wrong. "I'm going to need you to step aside, sir," she declares, her voice rising slightly with the kind of authority that comes from desperation rather than confidence. "You're holding up legitimate passengers who have proper documentation and reservations." The word legitimate lands like a physical slap across Darius's face, reverberating through the crowd like a gunshot. The live stream viewers jump to 84 and climbing. Comments flood the screen faster than anyone can read them, a digital avalanche of outrage and support. "This is so messed up. reads one comment. Sue them for everything they're worth, demands another. Someone help this man right now, pleads a third. This is straight-up racial profiling disguised as security, declares a fourth comment that receives dozens of likes within seconds. Officer Martinez notices details that Madison apparently missed in her rush to judgment. The expensive watch on Darius's wrist, an Omega Seamaster that costs more than Martinez makes in 3 months of security work. The way his clothes fit like they were tailored specifically for his frame, not grabbed off a department store rack. The complete absence of worry or panic, despite facing 2 security officers and increasingly public humiliation. Something doesn't add up in Martinez's experienced assessment of the situation, and his training tells him to proceed carefully when the evidence doesn't match the allegations. Sir, if you could just step over here while we sort this out. Martinez begins his tone diplomatic and measured. Actually, Darius interrupts gently, his tone remaining maddeningly calm, despite the escalating situation and growing crowd, before we proceed any further with this public spectacle. I'd like to make a phone call. Madison's eyes narrow into slits, her jaw tightening with frustration. That's not necessary for standard security procedures. We can handle this through proper channels and established protocols. I insist, Darius replies, pulling out his phone with deliberate slowness that makes every second feel like an eternity. Every movement is calculated, every gesture designed to buy time, while the crowd watches, while the cameras roll, while the evidence of discrimination accumulates in real time across multiple social media platforms. He dials a number from memory, his fingers moving with the confidence of someone who knows exactly who to call in situations like this. He puts the phone to his ear and waits, the silence stretching for 15 seconds that feel like hours, while 90 people hold their collective breath. Isabella. It's Darius, he says finally, his voice carrying easily through the hushed terminal space. I'm at Denver International Gate 27. There's been what you might call a significant misunderstanding about my boarding pass validity and my right to occupy a first-class seat. He pauses, listening to the voice on the other end, and several people in the crowd notice the slight smile that plays at the corners of his mouth. Yes, I understand the irony completely. No, I'll handle it appropriately through proper channels. Just wanted you to know I might be delayed for our 3 p.m. meeting and the quarterly review presentation. He ends the call and slides the phone back into his pocket with the same deliberate precision that has characterized all his movements since this confrontation began. Madison feels emboldened by what sounds like a call to a lawyer or concerned friend, exactly the kind of behavior she's been trained to recognize as suspicious. Her voice takes on the righteous indignation of someone who believes she's preventing a federal crime from occurring under her watch. See, she announces to the growing crowd, her voice carrying across the gate area, with renewed confidence. He's probably calling accomplices right now, coordinating stories, preparing alibis. This is exactly the kind of coordinated behavior we're trained to watch for in potential fraud situations involving multiple individuals. But Officer Martinez catches something subtle in Darius's tone during that phone call, something that doesn't fit Madison's narrative. The casual mention of irony suggests someone who understands the bigger picture. The complete absence of panic indicates someone who isn't worried about the outcome. The reference to a quarterly review presentation hints at corporate responsibilities that don't align with credit card fraud. Ma'am, Martinez says carefully, his training telling him to de-escalate rather than amplify the situation. Maybe we should verify this ticket through our computer system first before we proceed any further with these allegations. I already did that verification. Madison snaps her patience wearing thin as her authority gets questioned. The inconsistencies are obvious if you know what to look for and have proper training in fraud detection techniques. The announcement sounds again, cutting through the tension with mechanical indifference. Flight 889 to Chicago, Continuing general boarding. Passengers in zones 1 through 3 may now board. 48 minutes until scheduled departure. Darius checks his watch. And again, it's not the frantic gesture of someone running out of time. It's more like someone keeping track of a schedule he controls, rather than one that controls him, someone who has important appointments, but isn't worried about missing them. Miss Brooks. He says, his voice still eerily calm, despite the escalating situation and the crowd that has now grown to over 60 people. I want you to look at my boarding pass one more time. Really examine it carefully, not for what you expect to see, but for what's actually there. The challenge feels like a trap, but Madison is too deep into her performance to back down now. She's committed to this course of action, and admitting error at this point would mean public humiliation in front of dozens of witnesses and thousands of social media viewers. She snatches the boarding pass from his hand with theatrical force, determined to prove her expertise in front of the assembled audience to validate her training and her professional judgment. This time examining the document under different lighting, and with the pressure of proving herself right, she notices something she missed in her initial assessment. A small corporate logo embossed in the corner, so subtle it's barely visible, unless you know exactly what to look for, unless you've been trained to recognize it. This logo, she says, trying to maintain her authority, while doubt creeps into her voice like water through a cracked foundation. The placement is slightly irregular compared to standard formatting. The embossing depth isn't quite consistent with standard procedures I've been trained to recognize. Classic forgery indicators that most people wouldn't notice without proper security training. But even as she speaks, even as she tries to sound confident and professional, the logo looks familiar. Like something she remembers from training materials, but has never encountered in her 3 years of gate supervisor experience, something theoretical that has suddenly become real. Darius nods slowly, his expression shifting into something that might be approval, mixed with pity. The look of a teacher watching a student struggle with a concept they should have mastered long ago. That's a very interesting observation, Miss Brooks. That particular logo represents a service level so exclusive that most airline employees never encounter it in their entire careers, never see it outside of training materials and company handbooks. In fact, I believe the last comprehensive training session on recognizing that specific emblem was conducted approximately 18 months ago. Madison's hand trembles almost imperceptibly as she continues holding the boarding pass, and several people in the crowd notice the slight shake in her fingers. Her voice drops to barely above a whisper, uncertainty creeping in, despite her efforts to maintain composure. How could you possibly know about internal training schedules and company procedures? Darius's eyebrows rise just slightly, and his next words land like precision-guided missiles. I also recall that the passing score requirement for that particular training module was 75%, and you scored 68%. The blood drains from Madison's face so quickly that Officer Martinez takes an involuntary step forward, concerned she might actually faint right there in front of 60 witnesses and multiple recording devices, just barely failing, if I recall the company standards correctly. Darius continues with the tone of someone stating objective facts, rather than delivering personal attacks, someone who has access to information that shouldn't be available to random passengers. Sir Officer Martinez interjects, stepping forward decisively, his training telling him that this situation has escalated beyond simple ticket verification. I think we need to take this conversation to the security office and sort this situation out properly through official channels. Darius nods once, seeming pleased with this development, rather than concerned about it. Of course, Officer Martinez. But I'd suggest you document everything very carefully from this point forward, because this situation is about to become extremely educational for everyone involved in ways none of you are expecting. As they begin walking toward the security office, Darius places his boarding pass on the counter one final time with deliberate ceremony. Madison's hands shake visibly as she picks it up, staring at that mysterious logo, her mind racing through possibilities and implications, wondering desperately what crucial details she's missed, what information she lacks. The crowd follows with their eyes and cameras, sensing instinctively that something much bigger than a simple ticket dispute is about to unfold. The live stream viewer count has reached 156 and climbing steadily, comments flowing faster than anyone can read them. In 47 minutes, Madison Brooks would learn the most expensive lesson of her professional life. In 47 minutes, everything would change for everyone involved. In 47 minutes, a single moment of bias and poor judgment would transform into systematic change, affecting millions of travelers worldwide. But right now, walking toward that security office, Madison has no idea she's about to trigger the largest transformation in aviation history. The security office sits behind floor-to-ceiling glass walls overlooking Gate 27, providing a fishbowl view of the unfolding drama that continues to attract more spectators with each passing minute. Through those windows, the crowd has grown to nearly 80 people, their phones creating a constellation of glowing screens in the terminal's fluorescent lighting. David Martinez, Terminal Operations Manager, arrives looking like a man who'd rather be anywhere else in the continental United States. His tie hangs slightly askew. His usually perfect hair shows signs of hasty finger combing, and his expression cycles between annoyance and apprehension as he surveys the situation that's disrupting his afternoon. What exactly is the situation here? David asks, his voice carrying the weight of someone who already suspects this conversation will end up in his performance review and possibly on his permanent record. Madison launches into her explanation with renewed confidence, bolstered by the official setting and the presence of terminal management. Her voice takes on the cadence of someone delivering a rehearsed presentation to corporate executives. This gentleman presented what appears to be a sophisticated, fraudulent first-class boarding pass. She begins settling into what sounds like testimony. She's prepared for a security hearing. The paper quality shows inconsistencies with our standard printing procedures. The logo placement demonstrates several suspicious irregularities that I recognized from my training. The overall presentation fails to match our established security standards for premium passenger verification. She pauses, gathering momentum like a prosecutor building a case. Additionally, the passenger profile doesn't align with our typical first-class demographics, based on my 3 years of gate supervisor experience and customer service background. David examines Darius carefully, his 15 years of airport management experience, telling him to look beyond surface assumptions. The expensive clothes are obvious. That blazer alone probably costs more than David makes in a week. The posture speaks of someone comfortable with authority, someone who has held positions of responsibility. The calm demeanor suggests either complete innocence or professional-level deception skills. In his decade and a half of airport management, David has learned to read people, and Darius doesn't fit any profile of someone attempting to scam his way into first class. Something about this situation doesn't align with typical fraud cases. Sir David says carefully, "If you could just step over here while we verify your ticket through our comprehensive computer system and resolve this matter appropriately." Through the glass walls, they watch the boarding area continue filling with onlookers, drawn by the drama unfolding in the security office. The live stream viewer count visible on multiple phone screens pressed against the glass has climbed past 200. Comments scroll by in real time like a digital waterfall of opinions and outrage. "This is discrimination. Plain and simple," reads one comment. "Where's the manager?" demands another. "Someone call the news about this," suggests a third. "Get a lawyer involved immediately," advises a fourth viewer, who clearly understands the legal implications. Darius pulls out his phone again, and this time he doesn't ask for permission or explain his actions to the assembled security personnel and management. "Isabella." "It's Darius again," he says, his voice carrying easily in the small office space. "Yes, I'm still here dealing with this developing situation." Could you please contact Elizabeth Morrison's office immediately? Tell her I'm experiencing what could be classified as a significant customer service failure that requires her immediate personal attention and intervention. He pauses, listening to the voice on the other end, and everyone in the room watches his expression for clues about the conversation. Account number. He rattles off 12 digits from memory without hesitation, the numbers flowing like he recites them daily, like they're as familiar to him as his own phone number. Madison's face flushes red with renewed indignation. Her voice rises with the kind of authority that comes from desperation rather than confidence. See, he's calling more accomplices, coordinating stories, preparing alibis. This is exactly the kind of coordinated fraud operation we receive extensive training about. Multiple contacts, memorized account numbers, professional presentation, calm demeanor under pressure. These are textbook indicators of organized criminal activity involving multiple individuals. But David Martinez freezes mid-thought as recognition hits him like a physical blow. Elizabeth Morrison. That name triggers something significant in his memory banks, something that makes his stomach drop and his hands go cold. Elizabeth Morrison, Senior Vice President of Customer Relations and Service Excellence. Her signature appears on every corporate communication that crosses his desk. Her directive emails arrive in his inbox weekly with policy updates and performance standards. Her name is on the organizational chart hanging in his office. Sir David interrupts, his voice suddenly uncertain, filled with the kind of dread that comes from realizing you might be making a career-ending mistake. Did you just say Elizabeth Morrison? Darius nods calmly, as if the name should mean something to everyone in the room. Yes, she handles executive-level customer relations and service recovery for situations exactly like this one. I thought she should be made aware of this situation immediately, given its potential implications for your company's reputation and customer service standards. David's phone buzzes with an incoming text from his regional supervisor, the kind of message that makes airport managers break into cold sweats. He reads it with growing horror. Check social media immediately. Airport discrimination incident trending nationally. Involves your terminal and your staff. Handle this situation now, before it gets worse. 2 additional security officers arrive, making the small office feel crowded and tense with the weight of too many uniforms and too much authority concentrated in one space. Through the glass walls, they can see a local news crew setting up equipment in the concourse, their cameras and microphones creating an official media presence that transforms this from an internal matter to a public relations crisis. Someone has called the media, and this story is about to go statewide, possibly national, possibly international, depending on how it develops. Madison feels emboldened by the additional security presence, interpreting it as validation of her assessment and professional judgment, rather than recognition of a potentially explosive situation. Officers. She begins, her voice taking on an almost prosecutorial tone, the kind of authority that comes from believing you're on the right side of justice. I need you to understand the full severity of this situation and what we're potentially dealing with here. Her voice grows stronger with each word, fed by the attention and the sense that she's protecting national security. Fraudulent boarding passes represent a federal crime with serious national security implications. We're potentially dealing with identity theft, corporate fraud, credit card schemes, and possible terrorism-related activities that threaten the safety of every passenger in this terminal. The word terrorism hangs in the air like a toxic cloud, transforming the atmosphere in the room and sending shock waves through the live stream audience. The viewer count explodes, jumping to 450 in 30 seconds, as the audio carries through the glass walls to the phones pressed against them. Comments flood the screen with increasing anger and calls for legal action. Are they serious right now? Types one viewer. This is insane racial profiling, declares another. Someone's about to get sued hard, predicts a third. This is going viral for all the wrong reasons. Observe someone else who understands social media dynamics. Darius's expression doesn't change. If anything, he seems more relaxed, like someone watching a chess opponent make exactly the move he anticipated, like someone who knows something that will change everything in the next few minutes. Mrs. Brooks. He says, his tone remaining impossibly calm, despite the terrorism allegations and the growing crowd of security personnel. That's an extremely serious accusation. I hope you're prepared to defend it with substantial evidence, because false terrorism allegations carry significant legal consequences under federal law. His phone rings, cutting through the tension like a bell. He glances at the screen, and the slight smile that crosses his face makes everyone in the room lean forward slightly. "This is Elizabeth Morrison calling back," he announces to the room, his voice carrying a note of satisfaction. "Would you prefer that I put her on speaker so everyone can hear her response to your allegations, or would you like to continue with these accusations privately?" Madison's confidence wavers visibly, her voice becoming uncertain for the first time since this confrontation began. That's not necessary for proper protocol." "I think it is necessary," Darius replies, answering the call with deliberate ceremony. "Hi, Elizabeth. Yes, I'm here with several of your employees and terminal security personnel. We seem to have developed what you might call a significant misunderstanding about my boarding pass validity and my right to occupy a first-class seat." Elizabeth Morrison's voice fills the room, through the phone's speaker, carrying the crisp authority of someone accustomed to solving corporate crises and managing difficult situations. Her tone is professional, but concerned, the voice of an executive who takes customer relations seriously. "Mr. Washington, I apologize for any confusion or inconvenience. What kind of misunderstanding are we dealing with here? Your account shows that you hold our highest-tier Platinum Elite status and have been flying with us for over 12 years. Your record shows impeccable standing and significant annual spending." The room goes completely silent, except for the soft hum of the air conditioning system and the distant sounds of the busy terminal. Madison's hands shake visibly as she continues clutching the boarding pass she called fraudulent, her mind struggling to process this new information that doesn't fit her assumptions. Darius continues, his voice maintaining that maddening calm that makes everything else seem frantic and unprofessional. "Your gate supervisor has suggested that my ticket is a sophisticated forgery created by criminal organizations. She's also implied that I might be involved in organized fraud and potentially terrorism-related activities that threaten national security." Elizabeth's voice turns sharp as a surgical blade, cutting through the speaker with the kind of authority that makes corporate employees stand straighter and pay attention. She said, "What, Mr. Washington? Who exactly is making these accusations? I want names and employee identification numbers immediately. This is completely unacceptable." David Chen pulls out his phone and frantically begins Googling Darius Washington Airline, his fingers trembling as he types. His face drains of all color as the search results populate on his screen, each result making the situation worse. The first result reads, "Darius Washington, CEO and founder, SkyBridge Aviation Analytics. Provides strategic consulting to Fortune 500 companies on aviation industry optimization and customer experience enhancement." The second result makes his hands shake. Washington Aviation Consulting announces $23 million multi-year contract with major airline partners for comprehensive service analysis and improvement initiatives. The third result makes David's knees weak. Recent Forbes 30 under 40. Honoree Darius Washington continues expanding aviation consulting empire following tragic loss of wife Maria to cancer, dedicating career to systematic improvement in customer service excellence. David shows his phone screen to Madison with trembling hands. She reads the search results, her face cycling through confusion, recognition, realization, and pure horror as the full magnitude of her mistake becomes crystal clear. This isn't a passenger trying to scam his way into first class. This is the CEO of a consulting company that advises airlines on customer service. This is someone with a multi-million-dollar contract with their company. This is someone whose job involves identifying exactly the kind of discrimination she just demonstrated. Elizabeth Darius continues apparently unaware of the crisis unfolding around him, as people realize who they're dealing with. I don't want to escalate this situation unnecessarily, but I think there might be significant gaps in your employee training protocols that need immediate attention and comprehensive review. He recites his boarding pass number from memory, the digits flowing smoothly and matching perfectly with the ticket Madison holds in her trembling hands. Could you please verify that number in your system and confirm my account status, Mr. Washington? I'm pulling up your account right now. Elizabeth's voice comes through the speaker with growing concern. You're flying on, oh my God. You're booked on one of our new Platinum Premier routes. That's not just first class, that's our Chairman's Circle service level. Madison looks at the ticket again, really looks at it this time with the knowledge of who she's dealing with. The logo she thought was a forgery indicator suddenly makes perfect sense. It's not a fraud marker designed to fool security personnel. It's the Chairman's Circle emblem so exclusive that it appears in training materials as an example of what you might see once in a career, if you're fortunate enough to work at a major hub airport serving the world's most elite travelers. Elizabeth Darius asks with genuine curiosity, like someone conducting research, how many active Chairman's Circle members are there currently worldwide? 8, sir. 8 people worldwide hold that status level. It's our most exclusive service tier reserved for our highest value customers who contribute significantly to our annual revenue. The security officers exchange meaningful glances that speak volumes about the magnitude of this mistake. 1 of 8 people worldwide, and they've been treating him like a common criminal attempting to defraud the airline industry. The implications are staggering. Elizabeth, I should mention something else that might be relevant to your assessment of this situation. Darius continues, with the tone of someone delivering information that will change everything. I'm actually scheduled to present to your board of directors next Tuesday about customer experience optimization and service excellence improvements. Today's experience has been quite educational from a research perspective. Through the glass walls, they can see the crowd has grown to over 150 people. The news crew has their cameras rolling, broadcasting live to local television audiences. Social media posts are multiplying exponentially across multiple platforms. Hashtag Platinum Paradox starts trending alongside hashtag Airport Discrimination and hashtag Chairman's Circle. David Chen's phone buzzes again this time with a call from his regional director. The caller ID makes his stomach drop and his hands go cold. Regional director, urgent. David, he answers reluctantly, knowing this conversation will determine his future with the company. What the hell is happening at your terminal? The voice explodes through the phone. We're getting calls from corporate headquarters, the media, our legal department, and the CEO's office. Fix this situation immediately or start updating your resume and preparing for termination. Madison slumps into a chair, still clutching the boarding pass, the exclusive Chairman's Circle ticket she called a sophisticated forgery. The training she failed 18 months ago suddenly seems much more important than it did this morning. The 68% score that seemed adequate at the time now represents the foundation of a career-ending mistake. Elizabeth Darius continues, apparently oblivious to the career destruction happening around him. I'm curious about your current training protocols for premium service recognition. When was the last comprehensive Chairman's Circle identification training conducted for customer service personnel? 18 months ago, sir. We don't encounter these service levels frequently, so refresher training has been limited due to budget constraints and the rarity of these interactions. And what was the minimum passing score requirement for that training module? 75%, sir. Darius looks directly at Madison, his expression mixing disappointment with something that might be compassion, the look of someone who understands that systemic failures create individual mistakes. Miss Brooks scored 68% on that assessment, just barely failing if I recall the company standards correctly. Elizabeth's voice turns ice cold, carrying the kind of authority that ends careers and reshapes departments. 68%. That's significantly below our minimum qualification standard. How is she working in a customer-facing position with substandard training scores? Who authorized this? David Chen realizes his entire career is hanging by a thread that's rapidly fraying. Not only has his employee falsely accused their most exclusive customer of federal crimes, but she's been working below minimum qualifications for 18 months under his direct supervision. The systemic failure points directly to his management. Mr. Washington, David says, his voice cracking under pressure, I need you to understand that this absolutely does not represent our usual service standards or company values. This is an isolated incident that does not reflect our corporate culture. Darius checks his watch again, still not frantically, but with the precision of someone who controls his schedule rather than being controlled by it. Someone who has important meetings but isn't worried about missing them because he knows they'll wait. Flight 889, delayed 15 minutes for final passenger boarding, echoes the announcement. New departure time, 3:15 p.m. Gentlemen, Darius says, standing up with deliberate composure that commands attention from everyone in the room. I think it's time we resolve this situation comprehensively and appropriately for all parties involved. Elizabeth. He continues into the phone, his voice taking on the tone of someone who is about to change everything. Could you please conference in Patricia Williams? Elizabeth's voice hesitates, carrying a note of concern about escalating to the highest levels of corporate leadership. Patricia, as in our chief executive officer. Yes. This situation requires her immediate personal attention and direct involvement. The implications extend beyond customer service to systematic discrimination and corporate liability. The room falls silent, except for Madison's quiet sobbing and the distant murmur of the crowd gathering outside. David Chen stares at his phone, watching his professional reputation crumble in real time across multiple social media platforms as screenshots and videos spread faster than any damage control could possibly manage. Madison clutches the chairman's circle boarding pass, finally understanding that she hasn't just made a mistake, or even a series of mistakes. She has triggered a corporate crisis that will reshape policies and procedures across the entire aviation industry. She has falsely accused one of the airline's most valuable customers and primary consultants of terrorism. And Darius Washington, the man they treated like a potential terrorist, sits calmly in his chair, waiting for the airline's CEO to join a conversation that will change everything for everyone involved. In 3 minutes and 17 seconds, the most expensive phone call in Madison Brooks's professional life would begin. In 3 minutes and 17 seconds, everything would change. In 3 minutes and 17 seconds, systematic transformation would begin. The conference call connection takes 3 minutes and 17 seconds of suffocating silence, broken only by Madison's shallow breathing, the distant hum of the terminal's HVAC system, and the growing murmur of the crowd gathering outside the glass-walled office that has become a fishbowl for public scrutiny. Through those walls, they can count over 200 people now, their phones held high like digital torches in a modern-day public trial. Local news vans are multiplying in the parking structure, visible through the terminal windows. The story has taken on a life of its own, spreading across social media platforms, faster than any corporate crisis management team could possibly contain. Darius. Patricia Williams' voice cuts through the speaker with the sharp authority of someone who has built a Fortune 500 company from the ground up through decades of hard work and strategic decision-making. She doesn't sound like a CEO dealing with routine customer complaints. She sounds like someone who genuinely values a relationship and is deeply concerned about potential damage to it. Patricia Darius replies, his tone measured and professional, carrying none of the emotion you might expect from someone who has just been publicly humiliated and falsely accused of terrorism. I'm at Denver International with several members of your team. We've experienced what I would characterize as a significant customer service failure, with potentially serious implications. Given our current consulting relationship, I thought you should be informed immediately and directly. The words land in the room like precision-guided missiles, each one carrying weight that transforms the atmosphere. Madison's face cycles through a rainbow of emotions. Confusion, giving way to recognition, giving way to absolute horror as the implications wash over her like a cold wave. David Chen grips his phone so tightly, his knuckles have turned white. The terminal manager realizes he's not just dealing with an angry customer complaint or a simple misunderstanding. He's sitting in the epicenter of a corporate crisis that could end multiple careers and cost the company millions of dollars in legal fees, settlements, and reputation damage. Are you all right? Patricia asks, her voice carrying genuine concern that extends beyond corporate politeness. What kind of failure are we talking about specifically? Give me details. Darius begins documenting with the precision of someone who builds legal cases for a living. Someone who understands that words have consequences and details matter in corporate crisis situations that will inevitably involve lawyers and possibly federal investigators. Your gate supervisor questioned the validity of my chairman's circle boarding pass without proper verification. She suggested I was attempting corporate fraud involving forged documents. She implied potential connections to terrorism activities that threaten national security. Security was called based on her assessment and accusations. This entire incident occurred in full view of approximately 200 passengers, multiple live streams broadcasting to thousands of viewers, and at least 3 news crews providing television coverage. The silence stretches for exactly 15 seconds, while Patricia processes the magnitude of what she's hearing. When Patricia speaks again, her voice has dropped to a dangerous whisper that somehow carries more authority than any shouting could achieve. Jesus Christ, Darius. Are you telling me this actually happened? Please tell me you're exaggerating the details for emphasis. Madison. Patricia continues, her voice cutting through the office like a laser beam focused on its target. I assume you're listening to this conversation. Is Mr. Washington's account accurate? Did you actually accuse one of our chairman's circle members of terrorism? Madison's voice cracks like thin ice under pressure, barely audible through her tears and the weight of realizing her mistake. Yes, ma'am. I thought the ticket looked suspicious. The logo seemed wrong. The quality appeared inconsistent. I believed I was following proper security protocols and protecting the airline from fraud. You thought a chairman's circle ticket looked suspicious? Patricia's voice climbs toward a roar that probably carries through the glass walls to the waiting crowd. Do you have any comprehension of how many people worldwide possess those credentials? 8. Madison whispers, her voice barely audible above the air conditioning. 8 people in the entire world have active chairman's circle status, and you decided one of them was attempting to defraud us with a fake ticket created by terrorist organizations. Elizabeth Morrison's voice joins the call, adding another layer of corporate authority to the conversation, and making the small office feel even more crowded with executive attention. Ma'am, I've been reviewing our training records during this call. The last Chairman's Circle recognition training was conducted 18 months ago. Madison Brooks attended, but achieved a score of 68%. That's 7 points below our minimum passing standard of 75%. She has been working in customer service below minimum qualifications for 18 consecutive months. Patricia's voice turns lethal with controlled rage that makes everyone in the room stand straighter. below minimum qualifications, for 18 months. Who authorized this? David Chen watches his career flash before his eyes, in real time understanding that training compliance falls under his direct supervision, and this represents a systemic failure of his management responsibilities. Ma'am, there was a staffing shortage situation, and we needed coverage, so I authorized temporary placement pending retraining, but then with budget constraints and operational demands, the follow-up training was delayed. And David? Patricia's voice cuts him off with surgical precision. Stop talking. Right now. Immediately. Darius reaches into his jacket and pulls out that black card again, placing it on the table, where everyone present can see it clearly, under the office's fluorescent lighting. It's not just a status card or credit card. The silver lettering reads, Board Advisory Council, Strategic Aviation Consulting Platinum Level Partner. Patricia Darius continues his voice, maintaining that maddening calm that makes everything else seem frantic and unprofessional. There's something else you should understand about the full scope of this situation. He pauses, letting the anticipation build, while everyone stares at the board advisory card. I'm not just a passenger today. I'm traveling to Chicago for our quarterly consulting review meeting. You know the $23 million annual contract we've been implementing, the Comprehensive Customer Experience Analysis Program, the Systematic Improvement Initiative designed to identify and eliminate exactly these types of operational failures. The room temperature seems to drop 20 degrees as the implications settle over everyone like a suffocating blanket. The contract. Darius continues his voice carrying the weight of financial relationships that dwarf individual salaries, where I analyze customer experience protocols for potential system-wide improvements. The one where I identify operational failures that could cost the company significant revenue market share and reputation damage. The quarterly review, where I present findings to your board of directors about customer service excellence and discrimination prevention. Madison stares at the board advisory card, understanding flooding her consciousness like ice water in her veins. She hasn't just insulted a customer. She hasn't just made a professional mistake. She has publicly humiliated the man who literally helps design the airline's customer service policies. The consultant who will be presenting to the board of directors next Tuesday about exactly this type of incident. The irony is perfect, the justice poetic, and the career implications devastating. Darius. Patricia's voice now carries a note of genuine desperation, the kind that comes from realizing that a routine day has become a corporate nightmare. Please tell me this situation can be resolved quietly and professionally, without media coverage or legal action. Patricia. Let's examine this systematically. Darius replies, pulling out a tablet and swiping through screens with practiced efficiency. What's the current corporate policy regarding discrimination incidents in public spaces with extensive media coverage? Elizabeth Morrison's voice rejoins, now trembling slightly, with the understanding of corporate liability. Immediate comprehensive investigation, mandatory employee retraining, potential termination procedures, complete review of all related policies and procedures, and coordination with legal counsel for potential liability assessment. And what's the estimated cost impact of negative social media exposure for discrimination-related incidents involving racial profiling allegations? Patricia's voice is barely audible, carrying the weight of someone calculating financial disaster. Our legal and public relations teams estimate between $800,000 and $3.5 million in immediate response costs, plus ongoing reputation damage that can extend for years and affect customer acquisition, employee recruitment, and investor confidence. Darius checks his tablet, swiping through real-time social media analytics. The hashtag Platinum Paradox is currently trending number 4 nationally. Hashtag Airport Discrimination is number 7. Your company's stock price has dropped 3.1% in the last 45 minutes, representing approximately $67 million in lost market capitalization. David Chen checks his phone compulsively, watching the numbers that Alexander mentioned appear in real time. Social media has exploded with outraged support, corporate criticism, and demands for immediate accountability. The live stream viewers have reached 1,200 and continue climbing steadily as the story spreads across platforms. Darius Patricia's voice cracks with stress, carrying the tone of someone watching a company crisis unfold in real time. What can we do to address this situation appropriately? But Darius isn't finished with his analysis. He continues swiping through screens on his tablet with methodical precision, building a comprehensive picture of systematic failure. Patricia, I've been documenting this entire experience as part of my ongoing consulting observations. Would you like me to share my preliminary findings about systemic failures in your customer service operations? Oh God, yes. Please, give me everything. Darius's presentation is delivered with the clinical precision of a surgeon making a diagnosis, each point building upon the previous one to create a comprehensive picture of institutional failure. Failure. Point 1. Gate supervisor lacks adequate training for premium service recognition, scoring 13% below minimum competency standards. Failure. Point 2. Security escalation protocols activated without proper verification procedures or supervisory oversight. Failure. Point 3. Management intervention occurred without reviewing customer status, account history, or corporate relationships. Failure. Point 4. Discrimination accusations were made publicly without supporting evidence documentation or proper investigation. Failure. Point 5. Terrorism implications were suggested without basis, creating potential legal liability under federal false accusation statutes. Failure. Point 6. Multiple violations of your own published customer service standards occurred within a 40-minute time frame. He continues swiping through his documentation, each screen representing hours of research and analysis. But here's the most significant finding, Patricia. This isn't an isolated incident. My research over the past 8 months has identified similar patterns at 17 of your major hub airports. The training gaps are systemic. The oversight failures are widespread. The discrimination issues are recurring and documented. Today's incident is simply the most visible and well-documented example of a much larger problem affecting your entire operation. Madison's quiet sobbing intensifies as the scope of her mistake becomes clear. This isn't just about her personal failure. This isn't just about one customer complaint. This is about systemic discrimination that Darius has been tracking and documenting as part of a multi-million-dollar consulting contract designed to identify exactly these problems. Darius Patricia whispers, her voice carrying the weight of someone realizing that a single incident represents institutional failure. Are you telling me this pattern of discrimination is happening across our entire network? I'm telling you that your company has a $23 million consulting contract specifically because these problems exist at scale across multiple locations. Today, your employees have provided a perfect case study of everything my team has been identifying and trying to fix. The question now becomes whether you want to treat this as an opportunity for genuine transformation or whether you prefer to handle it as damage control. Darius stands up, his movement deliberate and commanding attention from everyone in the room. You have 2 options, Patricia. Tell me. I'll do whatever it takes. Option 1. We treat this as a comprehensive learning opportunity. Immediate policy changes across all locations. Mandatory retraining for all customer-facing employees with increased competency standards. Complete oversight review and accountability measures. Public acknowledgement and systematic reform. I continue our consulting relationship, and we use this incident to drive genuine, measurable improvement across your entire operation. He pauses, letting the alternative hang in the air like a sword over everyone's head. Option 2. I withdraw from our consulting contract, effective immediately. I document this experience in a detailed case study for industry publication and academic research. Your company handles the fallout, the media coverage, the legal implications, and the systematic discrimination issues without strategic guidance or expertise. The silence stretches for 30 seconds while everyone contemplates the implications. Outside, they can see news crews interviewing passengers, social media posts multiplying exponentially, and the story developing its own unstoppable momentum across multiple platforms. Option 1. Patricia says immediately, without hesitation, her voice carrying the desperation of someone choosing survival over pride. Absolutely option 1. Whatever you need, Darius. Whatever authority you require. Whatever resources are necessary. Complete cooperation. Darius nods once satisfied with her response. Then here's what happens in the next 90 minutes to begin systematic transformation. Madison looks up through her tears, finally beginning to understand the full magnitude of what she has triggered. She hasn't just made a career-ending mistake. She has initiated a corporate transformation that will reshape policies and procedures for the entire aviation industry. David Chen stares at his phone, watching his terminal become the epicenter of a national conversation about discrimination, corporate accountability, and systematic change. And Darius Washington, the man they treated like a potential terrorist, calmly begins outlining the terms that will transform their entire organization and possibly the entire industry. The most expensive 47 minutes in aviation history are about to begin. First, Darius begins his voice carrying the authority of someone who has just been handed complete corporate cooperation. Madison undergoes immediate suspension with full pay, not termination, and begins comprehensive retraining within 48 hours. This isn't punishment designed to destroy her career. It's education designed to rebuild it on a foundation of understanding and competence. David implements new recognition protocols system-wide within 72 hours. The company issues a public statement within 2 hours, acknowledging the failure and outlining specific corrective measures with timelines and accountability. Done. Patricia agrees instantly through the speaker. Absolutely done. No questions. Second, this incident becomes mandatory case study material for all customer-facing employees across your entire network. The training materials include full documentation of today's failures, their financial consequences, their impact on real people's lives, and their implications for corporate liability. Every employee learns exactly what happened here and why it can never happen again under any circumstances. Implemented immediately, Patricia confirms. Third, I want monthly comprehensive reports on discrimination, incident tracking training compliance rates, customer satisfaction metrics, specifically related to premium service recognition and employee performance data. These reports go directly to your board of directors, not through filtered management channels or sanitized summaries. You'll have complete access and total transparency. Darius checks his tablet one more time, swiping through additional screens of data and recommendations. And Patricia, I want Madison to personally deliver a public apology in front of the same crowd that witnessed her accusations. Not as humiliation designed to shame her, but as accountability designed to educate everyone watching. Not as punishment that destroys her dignity, but as education that restores it through honest acknowledgement of mistakes. Madison's face drains of what little color remained. Through the glass walls, they can see the crowd, over 250 people now, cameras recording everything, phones streaming live to thousands of viewers, news crews broadcasting to regional television audiences across multiple markets. But Darius isn't finished with his requirements, because Patricia, the most important lesson here isn't about policies or training protocols or corporate procedures. It's about basic human dignity and the systematic failures that allow discrimination to flourish in institutional settings. And sometimes, the most effective teacher is genuine public accountability, delivered with sincerity and commitment to change. The room falls silent as everyone absorbs the full weight of what's about to happen. Madison will have to face the same crowd that watched her make accusations of fraud and terrorism, but this time to acknowledge her mistakes and commit to being part of the solution. Patricia Darius continues his voice, cutting through the silence like precision steel. Before we proceed with public accountability, I need you to understand the complete scope of what happened here today and why it matters beyond this single incident. Through the phone speaker, they can hear Patricia shuffling papers, probably alerting her crisis management team and legal department. The CEO of a Fortune 500 company is scrambling to contain damage caused by a gate supervisor who failed a training test 18 months ago. Darius, I'm listening. Tell me everything. I want complete transparency. Darius opens his tablet again, swiping to a detailed spreadsheet filled with charts, graphs, and financial projections that represent months of research and analysis. Let's start with the immediate financial impact. Your stock price dropped 3.1% in 45 minutes. That represents approximately $67 million in market capitalization lost due to a discrimination incident that could have been prevented with proper training and oversight. Madison's quiet sobbing intensifies. $67 million. Her mistake didn't just humiliate one customer or damage her own career. It cost shareholders nearly $70 million in less than an hour. The social media metrics are equally devastating. Darius continues scrolling through real-time data that updates as he speaks. Hashtag Platinum Paradox has been used in over 18,000 posts in the last hour. Hashtag Airport Discrimination appears in over 25,000 posts. The sentiment analysis shows 89% negative mentions of your airline, specifically with calls for boycotts, legal action, and systematic investigation. David Chen's phone buzzes constantly now, with messages from regional directors, corporate communications teams, crisis management specialists, and legal advisors. His terminal has become ground zero for a public relations nightmare that's spreading faster than any containment strategy could possibly address. But Patricia, the financial damage, and social media crisis are actually the smallest concerns from a long-term strategic perspective. Let me show you something more troubling. Darius swipes to another screen, showing a comprehensive database of incidents, locations, dates, and outcomes. Over the past 8 months, my consulting team has identified and documented 73 similar incidents across your network. Gate agents questioning legitimate tickets, security being called for premium customers, discrimination disguised as security protocols, premium passengers accepting poor treatment and switching to competitors rather than filing formal complaints. The silence on Patricia's end stretches for 25 seconds. 73 documented cases, she finally whispers. 73 documented cases where your employees failed to recognize premium status holders, treated valued customers like potential criminals, or allowed personal bias to override professional judgment. Most of those customers simply accepted the poor treatment, completed their travel, and made different booking decisions for future trips. Today's incident is unique only because it happened to someone with the resources, knowledge, and platform to document it properly and demand systematic accountability. Elizabeth Morrison's voice rejoins the call, her tone reflecting growing understanding of the scope of the problem. Sir, I'm pulling up our customer retention data right now. Premium customer defection rates have increased 31% over the past 18 months. We've been treating this as natural market competition, but if it's actually discrimination-driven, it is discrimination-driven, Darius confirms. Your training failures are systematically driving away your most valuable customers. The lifetime value of a Chairman's Circle member averages $2.8 million in revenue over their relationship with your airline. You've lost premium customers, representing over $47 million in potential lifetime revenue due to discrimination incidents that proper training could have prevented. Madison looks up through her tears, finally understanding the true magnitude of her actions. She didn't just insult one customer or violate company policies. Her inadequate training and personal biases represent a systemic failure that has cost the company tens of millions of dollars in lost revenue and reputation damage. Patricia's voice sounds like she's having difficulty breathing. What do you recommend for immediate implementation? I recommend we start with comprehensive accountability, then move to systematic reform. But first, I want everyone in this room to understand exactly what they're dealing with and why this matters beyond today's incident. Darius stands up his movement, commanding attention from everyone present. Outside the glass walls, they can see the crowd has grown to over 300 people. News crews from 5 local stations have cameras rolling. The live stream viewer count has reached 2,100. International media outlets are beginning to pick up the story. Madison Darius says, looking directly at her with an expression that combines disappointment with compassion, "Look at me." She raises her head reluctantly, tears streaming down her face. "You accused me of corporate fraud based on assumptions about how I look and what I could afford. You suggested terrorism connections because my presence in first class didn't match your expectations. You called security and created a public spectacle because you failed to recognize a service level that 8 people worldwide possess. Do you understand what that means?" Her voice comes out as barely a whisper. "I made a terrible mistake." "No, Madison. You didn't make a mistake. You demonstrated institutional bias disguised as security protocol. You showed exactly how discrimination operates in corporate environments through supposedly neutral policies applied subjectively based on personal assumptions. There's a significant difference." Darius turns to David Chen. "David, your terminal processes approximately 45,000 passengers daily. Of those, roughly 300 hold premium status requiring special recognition and service protocols. That's less than 1% of your daily traffic, but they represent approximately 35% of your revenue. Your failure to properly train employees for premium recognition isn't just poor customer service, it's economic sabotage of your own business model." David's face goes pale as the mathematics of premium passenger revenue become clear for the first time. Patricia Darius continues addressing the phone directly. "I need specific implementation commitments, not general promises. Tell me exactly what you want. Whatever it takes. First, mandatory recertification for all customer-facing employees. The 75% passing score becomes 90%. Anyone scoring below 90% receives additional training until they achieve competency. No exceptions for staffing shortages or budget constraints. Implemented system-wide within 30 days, Patricia confirms. Second, real-time verification technology for all premium status recognition. Every premium card gets instant digital confirmation through handheld devices. No more guessing. No more subjective judgment calls. No more room for personal bias to override objective verification. I'll have our technology team start development immediately. Third, discrimination incident tracking with quarterly board-level reporting. Every complaint gets documented, investigated, and included in executive performance reviews. Systematic accountability from frontline employees to senior management. Darius pauses, letting the weight of comprehensive accountability sink in throughout the organization. But Patricia, the most important change isn't technological or procedural. It's cultural. He walks to the glass wall overlooking the crowd. Hundreds of people watching recording, sharing the story of discrimination and corporate transformation across social media platforms. Your employees need to understand that premium service isn't about the money customers spend or the status they hold. It's about treating every human being with dignity and respect, regardless of appearance, background, or assumptions about what they deserve. The training failures that led to today's incident represent a fundamental misunderstanding of what hospitality means in a service industry. Madison's sobbing has stopped. She's listening now, understanding that this isn't just about punishment or even correction. It's about transformation, personal, professional, and systematic. Darius. Patricia says, I want you to personally oversee the implementation of these changes. Whatever resources you need, whatever authority you require, whatever timeline makes sense, consider it granted without limitation. I accept with one important condition. Name it. Anything. I want Madison to be part of the solution, not just a casualty of the problem. Everyone in the room looks surprised, especially Madison. She undergoes comprehensive retraining, becomes a case study for the new protocols, and eventually helps train other employees across your network. People learn more effectively from redemption stories than from punishment examples. Madison's experience today makes her uniquely qualified to prevent this from happening to anyone else. Patricia's relief is audible through the speaker. That's incredibly generous, Darius. It's not generosity, Patricia. It's strategic thinking. Madison's experience today, her failures, her realization, her commitment to change makes her the perfect advocate for preventing discrimination. She understands the consequences in ways that no theoretical training could ever achieve. Darius checks his watch one final time, noting the crowd outside and the continuing media coverage. Now, let's address the immediate crisis management situation. I want you, Patricia, to issue a public statement within 90 minutes. Personal accountability from the CEO level, specific reform measures with timelines, and a commitment to systematic change with measurable outcomes. I'll draft it immediately with complete transparency. I want you to personally call the other 7 Chairman's Circle members and explain exactly what happened here today. They need to hear directly from you that this incident isn't representative of your values or your future standards of service. The weight of personal calls to 7 of the world's most influential and wealthy travelers settles over Patricia like a lead blanket. Finally, I want a comprehensive board presentation scheduled for next Tuesday. Full documentation of today's incident, detailed reform proposals with budgets and timelines, and quarterly progress reporting with specific metrics and accountability measures. Darius walks back to the table, picks up his blackboard advisory card, and slides it into his jacket pocket with deliberate precision. Gentlemen, Miss Brooks, what happened here today was inexcusable, but it's also completely preventable with proper systems training and oversight. The question isn't whether discrimination exists in your operation today, proved that it does. The question is whether you're committed to eliminating it systematically and permanently. He moves toward the door, then turns back to address the room one final time. Oh, and Patricia, my flight to Chicago has been delayed 52 minutes because of this incident. I'll be billing those consulting hours at my standard crisis management rate, which is considerably higher than my normal strategic planning rate. Even in the middle of a corporate meltdown that will reshape an entire industry, Darius Washington maintains the composure of someone who transforms problems into opportunities and turns crises into competitive advantages. Madison. He says, his voice softer now, carrying a note of encouragement rather than judgment. You're about to walk out to that crowd and apologize publicly for your actions and assumptions. Remember, this isn't just about you or even about me. This is about everyone who's ever been looked down upon, dismissed, or discriminated against because someone else made assumptions about who they are or what they deserve. Madison nods, understanding finally dawning that her apology represents something much larger than her personal mistake. This is about systematic change and cultural transformation. Are you ready to face the consequences of your actions and become part of the solution? She stands up, wipes her eyes with tissues provided by Officer Martinez, straightens her uniform and nods once with more determination than anyone expected. Then, let's go make this right. The walk from the security office to Gate 27 covers exactly 127 feet. But for Madison Brooks, it feels like a journey across an ocean of judgment. Each step echoes in the terminal's acoustic space, amplified by the absolute silence that falls over the crowd as they approach. The assembled audience has grown to over 350 people now. Passengers from delayed flights have joined the original witnesses. Airport employees have gathered during their breaks. Local residents have arrived after seeing the story on social media. The live stream viewer count displays 3,400 and climbing steadily as the story spreads across multiple platforms. News crews from 7 television stations have their cameras positioned strategically around the gate area. Radio reporters hold recording devices. Newspaper journalists tap notes on their phones. The story has transcended local interest and reached regional, possibly national significance. Darius moves with the measured pace of someone who understands that justice isn't about revenge or humiliation. It's about education, accountability, and systematic change. Madison walks beside him, her hands shaking visibly, but her posture straighter than it's been all day. The crowd parts as they approach, creating a natural pathway to the hastily arranged microphone setup that appeared sometime during their security office discussion. Phones are held high like digital torches. The atmosphere crackles with anticipation, anger, curiosity, and something that might be hope for meaningful resolution. Madison's hands shake as she stands before the microphone. The weight of 350 people watching in person, plus thousands more viewing online, plus television audiences across multiple markets, settles over her like a suffocating blanket. Her voice cracks on the first attempt to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen," she begins her words barely audible through the sound system. "I need to make a public apology for my actions and judgments today." The crowd goes completely silent. Even the background noise of the terminal seems to fade into respectful quiet. This moment will be preserved forever in digital memory, searchable and shareable for years to come. 45 minutes ago, I made a serious error in judgment that caused significant harm to Mr. Washington and demonstrated the kind of discrimination that has no place in customer service or basic human interaction. Her voice grows stronger as she continues, drawing strength from Darius's encouraging nod. I questioned the validity of Mr. Washington's boarding pass without proper verification through our computer systems. I suggested he might be involved in fraud based on my personal assumptions rather than factual evidence. I called security and implied potential terrorism connections because his presence in first class didn't match my preconceived expectations about what premium passengers should look like. Someone in the crowd calls out, "What's Chairman's Circle? Why is this different from regular first class?" Madison looks at Darius, who nods encouragingly for her to continue. "Chairman's Circle represents the highest level of customer recognition in our industry." Madison explains, her voice steadying with each word. "These passengers have typically flown over 3 million miles with us and contribute significant revenue to our operations. Only 8 people worldwide currently hold this status level." She pauses, letting that extraordinary exclusivity sink in. But even if Mr. Washington had been flying in economy class, even if he'd never flown with us before, even if he'd been traveling on the most basic ticket possible, he deserved better treatment than I provided. Every passenger, every human being deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. A young woman raises her hand. "Are you being fired for this?" Madison glances at Darius before answering. "I'm being suspended for mandatory comprehensive retraining, but Mr. Washington has recommended that I become part of the solution rather than just a casualty of the problem. I'll be working with our training department and consulting teams to ensure no other employee makes the same mistakes I made today. The crowd murmurs with surprise. They expected termination scandal corporate cover-up. Instead, they're witnessing something unprecedented: redemption, education, and systematic reform. Darius steps forward to the microphone. His presence commands immediate attention, and the crowd falls silent with expectation. What happened here today wasn't just about one employee's mistake, he says, his voice carrying clearly across the gate area and through the live stream to thousands of online viewers. It was about systematic failures in training recognition protocols and corporate culture that allow discrimination to masquerade as security procedures. He pauses, making eye contact with individuals throughout the crowd, connecting personally with people who have experienced similar treatment. But here's what's going to change, and why today's incident will prevent similar discrimination from happening to others. He pulls out his tablet and begins sharing specific commitments. Within 30 days, every customer service employee in this airline's network will undergo mandatory recertification. The passing score is being raised from 75% to 90%. Real-time verification technology will eliminate guesswork about passenger status. Discrimination incident tracking will ensure accountability at every level of the organization. A businessman calls out, "How do we know these changes will actually happen? How do we know this isn't just corporate damage control?" Darius reaches into his jacket and pulls out his board advisory card, holding it up for everyone to see clearly. "Because I'm not just a passenger who experienced discrimination. I'm Darius Washington, CEO of SkyBridge Aviation Analytics. This airline pays my company $23 million annually to identify and fix exactly these kinds of systematic problems." He pauses as the crowd processes this information. Today's incident will become a comprehensive case study for industry-wide reform. My company specializes in customer experience optimization and discrimination prevention. What happened to me today will be documented, analyzed, and used to prevent similar incidents across the entire aviation industry. The crowd erupts in murmurs of surprise and excited chatter. The discrimination victim is actually the expert consultant hired to eliminate discrimination. The irony is perfect, the justice poetic, the transformation potential enormous. More importantly, Darius continues, this incident will be tracked and monitored with quarterly reports to the board of directors. Executive performance reviews will include customer dignity metrics. Systematic accountability will ensure that what happened to me today never happens to anyone else. A local news reporter pushes forward with her microphone and camera crew. "Mr. Washington, what message do you want people to take from this experience? What should viewers understand about discrimination and corporate accountability?" Darius considers the question carefully, understanding that his answer will be broadcast across multiple markets and shared extensively on social media. That real power isn't about getting revenge when you're wronged. True power is using your position and resources to ensure others don't face the same injustice. He turns to address the crowd directly, his voice carrying conviction and compassion. "How many of you have been discriminated against in public spaces? Questioned when you belonged somewhere, made to feel small because someone made assumptions about who you are or what you deserve?" Hands rise throughout the crowd. More than half the people gathered have experienced similar treatment in airports, restaurants, stores, hotels, or other service environments. "Today's incident wasn't unique because it happened to me," Darius continues. "It was unique because I had the resources, knowledge, and platform to document it properly and demand systematic change. But everyone deserves that same level of protection and dignity." The live stream comments explode with support and shared experiences. #DignityForAll begins trending alongside the original discrimination hashtags. Social media sentiment is shifting from outrage to hope, from anger to inspiration. This transformation isn't just about airline policies or corporate training programs. It's about fundamental respect for human dignity in all service interactions. It's about creating systems that prevent discrimination rather than just responding to it after the damage is done. Darius checks his watch, noting the continuing media coverage and crowd engagement. Flight 889 to Chicago is now ready for boarding with proper recognition protocols and verification procedures in place. All passengers who witness today's events will receive written documentation of the reforms being implemented, along with direct contact information for reporting any future discrimination concerns. He moves toward the boarding gate, then turns back to address both Madison and the crowd one final time. Madison, you have a choice now. You can let this mistake define your career and your character, or you can use it to help transform an entire industry. The training you'll receive, the protocols, you'll help develop, the employees you'll educate. They all represent your opportunity for meaningful redemption and positive impact. Madison nods, tears flowing freely, but her posture straighter and more confident than it's been since this incident began. Mr. Washington, she says, her voice carrying across the gate area. I won't let you down. I won't let anyone down. Don't do it for me, Darius replies. Don't do it for the company or the industry or even for your own career advancement. Do it for everyone who's ever been made to feel like they don't belong. Everyone who's been judged by their appearance rather than their character. Everyone who deserves dignity and respect in their daily interactions. As Darius approaches the boarding gate, a remarkable thing happens. The crowd begins to applaud. Not the angry, sarcastic applause of a mob demanding justice, but the genuine, respectful applause of people who have witnessed real leadership, meaningful accountability, and systematic change. The boarding process proceeds smoothly, with digital verification, confirming Darius's chairman's circle status instantly. The gate agent, a different employee who has been briefed on proper procedures, provides exemplary service with genuine warmth and professionalism. Welcome aboard, Mr. Washington, the agent says. We're honored to have you flying with us today, and we sincerely apologize for the service failure you experienced earlier. Thank you, Darius replies. But remember, every passenger boarding this aircraft deserves that same welcome, whether they're flying Chairman's Circle or economy, whether they're frequent travelers or flying for the first time. Excellence in service means universal dignity, not exclusive treatment. The agent nods, understanding that the lesson extends far beyond premium passenger recognition. As Darius boards the aircraft, the crowd begins to disperse, but phones remain active. Social media posts continue multiplying, and the story spreads beyond Denver International Airport to national and international audiences. Within 6 hours, the airline's stock price not only recovers completely, but rises an additional 2.8%. Financial markets recognize that systematic discrimination reform represents competitive advantage, not just regulatory compliance. Within 24 hours, 4 competitor airlines announced similar training protocol reviews and customer dignity initiatives. The transformation Darius demanded begins spreading across the entire industry. Within 1 week, his consulting firm receives inquiries from 19 additional aviation companies, 12 hospitality organizations, and 7 retail corporations seeking discrimination prevention services. Madison begins her comprehensive retraining the following Monday. Her first assignment, developing a presentation called When Assumptions Become Discrimination, a personal case study in corporate transformation. David Martinez implements the new verification technology ahead of schedule. His terminal becomes the pilot program for industry-wide reform, transforming from the site of discrimination into a model of inclusive service excellence. And Darius Washington, the man who was denied his rightful seat and accused of terrorism, transforms a moment of injustice into systematic change that will protect thousands of future travelers from similar discrimination. Because sometimes, the most powerful response to being looked down upon isn't looking down on others in return. Sometimes, the most powerful response is lifting everyone up. 3 days after the Denver incident, the transformation Darius demanded begins manifesting across the aviation industry with unprecedented speed and scope that surprises even industry experts who have been tracking discrimination prevention efforts for decades. Madison Brooks sits in a corporate training facility in Atlanta, surrounded by 47 other airline employees who have traveled from across the country for emergency discrimination prevention education. Her story has become the centerpiece of a curriculum that will eventually reach over 15,000 customer service employees within 6 months. My name is Madison Brooks. She begins standing before her colleagues with a confidence born from confronting her deepest professional failure. And I want to tell you about the most expensive mistake in aviation history. My mistake. And how we can ensure it never happens again to any passenger anywhere ever. The presentation screen behind her displays a photograph from that day at Denver International. Darius Washington standing calmly, while security officers surround him, his boarding pass in Madison's trembling hands, hundreds of phones recording the incident that would reshape an industry forever. This man is Darius Washington, CEO of SkyBridge Aviation Analytics, holder of Chairman's Circle status, and our company's primary consultant for customer experience optimization. Madison continues, her voice growing stronger with each word. I accused him of fraud, implied terrorist connections, and called security. All because I failed to recognize his legitimate credentials and made assumptions based on personal bias and inadequate training. She clicks to the next slide, showing financial impact data that makes several audience members gasp audibly. $67 million in stock value lost in 90 minutes. $23 million consulting contract at risk. Reputation damage requiring $3.2 million in crisis management response. But the numbers don't tell the complete story. Madison continues, her voice carrying the weight of someone who has lived through the human cost of discrimination. The real cost was human dignity, professional integrity, and systematic discrimination, disguised as security protocol. In the audience airline, employees from 23 different airports take notes, ask questions, and share their own experiences with premium passenger recognition challenges. The conversation extends beyond policy compliance to personal accountability and cultural change. Meanwhile, Darius Washington stands before the board of directors of Patricia Airlines in their Chicago headquarters, presenting quarterly findings that will reshape customer service standards across the industry and possibly beyond. The discrimination incident at Denver represents more than an isolated failure. He begins displaying comprehensive data analysis on the conference room's wall-mounted screens. My team has documented similar patterns at 73 locations across your network, affecting premium customers who contribute 35% of your total revenue, despite representing less than 1% of passenger volume. Board members study charts showing customer defection rates, service failure frequencies, and revenue impact projections. The financial case for systematic reform becomes undeniable through Darius's detailed analysis and compelling presentation. However, the Denver incident also provides us with a unique opportunity. Darius continues clicking to implementation timelines and success metrics. Madison Brooks's experience has become our most powerful training tool. Her willingness to acknowledge failure and commit to change demonstrates the kind of cultural transformation that drives sustainable improvement across entire organizations. Patricia Williams, the CEO, addresses the board directly with the kind of decisive leadership that built her reputation in corporate America. We're implementing Darius's recommendations system-wide. The investment in training technology and oversight, represents $47 million over 2 years, but the revenue protection and competitive advantage justify every dollar spent. She pauses, reviewing quarterly projections that show the long-term benefits of systematic reform. More importantly, we have the opportunity to lead industry standards for discrimination prevention. Our competitors are scrambling to respond to the changes we're implementing. We can transform a crisis into a competitive advantage that positions us as the industry leader in customer dignity and service excellence. Back in Denver, the terminal where the incident occurred has become a model location for the new protocols Darius demanded. Digital verification devices confirm passenger status instantly. Real-time training modules appear on employee workstations. Customer feedback systems provide immediate data on service quality and discrimination concerns. David Martinez, now promoted to Regional Director of Customer Experience, walks through his former terminal with visiting executives from other airlines who want to study the transformation process and implement similar changes. The change isn't just technological, David explains, demonstrating the new verification systems that have eliminated subjective judgment calls. It's cultural. Every employee understands that customer dignity represents our core value, not just a policy requirement or legal obligation. He stops at Gate 27, where the original incident occurred. A small plaque now reads, "In recognition of customer dignity and service excellence." Every interaction matters. Every person deserves respect. We measure success not just by revenue or efficiency metrics, but by discrimination, incident reports, customer satisfaction scores, and employee confidence in handling diverse passenger needs. David continues, "The training Madison Brooks now provides has eliminated recognition failures at this location completely. The visiting executives take extensive notes, photograph the verification technology, and schedule similar transformations for their own operations across multiple cities and countries." 1 week after the Denver incident, Darius receives a phone call that will expand the transformation beyond aviation into other service industries struggling with similar discrimination challenges. Mr. Washington. This is James Morrison, CEO of Morrison Hospitality Group. We operate 347 hotels across North America, and we've been following the airline discrimination story closely. We want to hire your consulting firm to prevent similar incidents in our properties. The conversation represents the beginning of industry-wide transformation that extends far beyond aviation into hospitality, retail, and other customer-facing businesses. The principles are universal, Darius explains during a strategy session with his expanding consulting team. Training failures, cultural biases, and systematic discrimination affect every service industry. The Denver incident provided us with the perfect case study for driving change across multiple sectors. His team, now expanded to include former airline employees like Madison Brooks, develops comprehensive programs for hotels, restaurants, retail stores, and transportation companies. The transformation spreads faster than any traditional industry change initiative. Madison, now serving as lead trainer for discrimination prevention, addresses her largest audience yet. Over 500 hospitality industry managers gathered for a national conference in Las Vegas, representing hotels, restaurants, theme parks, and entertainment venues. Discrimination isn't always intentional. She begins her presentation skills, now polished through dozens of similar presentations across the country. Often, it's the result of inadequate training, cultural assumptions, and systematic failures in recognition protocols. The question isn't whether discrimination exists in your organization. It's whether you're committed to identifying and eliminating it proactively. She shares video testimonials from employees who have completed the new training programs, customer feedback showing improved satisfaction scores, and financial data demonstrating revenue protection through better premium customer recognition and overall service excellence. The Denver incident taught us that crisis can become catalyst. Madison continues, her voice carrying the authority of someone who has lived through complete professional transformation. Personal failure can drive professional growth. Individual accountability can generate systematic change. The choice is always between making excuses or making improvements. The audience responds with sustained applause and immediate requests for training program implementation. Madison's story of redemption and reform resonates across industries struggling with similar discrimination challenges. 2 weeks after Denver's social media analysis shows remarkable transformation in public sentiment. #Platinum Paradox, originally associated with discrimination and corporate failure, now represents systematic reform and positive change. #Dignity for All has been used in over 150,000 posts, celebrating service excellence and discrimination prevention initiatives. Darius's wife, Maria Washington, calls him from their Chicago home with news that brings personal meaning to the professional transformation occurring across multiple industries. The Maria Washington Memorial Fund received its largest donation ever today, she reports. A group of airline employees who completed Madison's training program contributed $23,000 in honor of the dignity and respect principles you've been promoting. The fund, established after Maria's first wife's death from cancer, provides scholarships for underprivileged students pursuing careers in hospitality and customer service. The connection between personal loss, professional mission, and systematic change creates powerful motivation for continued reform efforts. Your first wife would be proud, Maria reflects. She always believed that education and personal accountability could overcome prejudice and discrimination. The Denver incident proved she was right. 3 weeks after the incident, Darius receives an invitation that validates the scope of transformation his experience has generated across government and private sector organizations. Mr. Washington, this is Senator Patricia Johnson from the Senate Transportation Committee. We're convening hearings on discrimination in commercial aviation, and we'd like you to provide expert testimony about systematic reform and prevention strategies. The congressional testimony will provide Darius with a national platform for advocating discrimination prevention policies across all transportation modes, including aviation, rail, bus, and maritime services. The private sector transformation we've achieved demonstrates that systematic change is possible when leadership commits to genuine accountability. Darius prepares for his testimony. Government oversight can accelerate and standardize these improvements across all service industries. Madison, now recognized as a national expert in discrimination. Prevention training receives her own invitation to testify about personal transformation and employee education programs. 1 month after Denver, the results speak for themselves, with measurable improvements across multiple metrics. Discrimination complaints across the airline industry dropped 43%. Customer satisfaction scores for premium services reach historic highs. Employee confidence in handling diverse passengers increases 67%. Revenue protection from improved premium customer retention exceeds $127 million industry-wide. Training programs expand to 12 additional industries beyond aviation. Academic institutions begin requiring discrimination prevention courses for hospitality and business students. The transformation Darius demanded in that Denver security office has evolved into the largest systematic change initiative in service industry history, affecting millions of customer interactions daily. But the most profound changes are personal and deeply human. Madison Brooks, once facing career destruction, now leads the industry's most successful discrimination prevention program. Her 10-year-old daughter, Emma, inspired by her mother's transformation, begins studying aviation management, with dreams of continuing the reform movement. Darius Washington channels his grief over his first wife's death into meaningful change that affects thousands of travelers daily. His consulting practice grows from airline-focused services to comprehensive discrimination prevention across multiple industries. The Denver incident. Initially, a moment of injustice and professional crisis, becomes the catalyst for the most significant advancement in customer dignity and service equality in modern business history. Because sometimes the most powerful response to being looked down upon is lifting everyone else up. And sometimes the most meaningful justice comes not from punishment, but from transformation that protects everyone who comes after you. 6 months later, Darius Washington stands in the same terminal where his journey of transformation began. But Denver International Airport Gate 27 now represents something entirely different. The space buzzes with efficiency, dignity, and genuine customer service excellence that extends far beyond policy compliance to cultural transformation. Digital displays throughout the terminal show real-time customer service metrics that would have been impossible before the incident. Discrimination incidents 0 for 127 consecutive days. Customer satisfaction scores 94.7% highest in airport history. Employee confidence ratings 96.3% report, feeling fully prepared to handle diverse passenger needs. The verification technology, Darius demanded, has evolved beyond simple premium status confirmation to comprehensive customer recognition systems that ensure every passenger receives appropriate service, regardless of their appearance, background, or ticket type. Madison Brooks approaches him at the gate, but this time she wears a different badge, Director of Customer Dignity Excellence, with certifications in discrimination prevention training and service equity leadership. Mr. Washington, she says, extending her hand with confidence, earned through 6 months of intensive education and successful program implementation. I wanted to thank you again for giving me the opportunity to transform this crisis into meaningful change. Darius shakes her hand warmly, noting the profound difference in her posture, voice, and overall presence. How's the training program progressing? Madison, we've certified over 12,000 employees across 89 airports, she reports with obvious pride. Discrimination complaints have dropped 87% system-wide. Customer satisfaction scores for premium services have reached all-time records. Revenue from retained premium customers has increased $73 million beyond projections. She pauses, her expression becoming more personal and reflective. But more importantly, we're changing hearts and minds. When employees understand the real cost of assumptions, financial, personal, and moral, they approach every interaction differently. Madison pulls out her tablet, showing comprehensive program metrics and employee feedback data that demonstrates the depth of cultural transformation. We're not just preventing discrimination now. We're actively promoting dignity and respect in every customer interaction. The training you insisted on has become the industry standard for cultural transformation. Darius nods approvingly, reviewing the data she presents, with the satisfaction of someone who has seen systematic change take root and flourish. What's next for your program? International expansion, Madison replies with excitement. 17 airlines in 9 countries have requested our discrimination prevention services. We're developing culture-specific training modules while maintaining universal dignity principles. She swipes to another screen, showing global implementation timelines and cultural adaptation strategies. Emma is actually helping with the international program development as part of her college aviation management studies. She's been accepted to Northwestern for graduate school with a full scholarship from the Maria Washington Memorial Fund. Darius smiles at the mention of Emma, Madison's daughter, who became an unexpected symbol of innocence and hope during the original crisis. She wants to specialize in customer experience optimization and discrimination prevention. Madison continues. She says watching her mom transform failure into leadership showed her that any crisis can become an opportunity for positive change. As they talk, Captain James Wilson approaches, the veteran pilot who witnessed the original incident and has since become an advocate for customer dignity training in aviation. Darius, good to see you again, Captain Wilson says. I wanted you to know that our pilot training now includes customer dignity awareness as part of professional development. We're ensuring that discrimination prevention extends beyond ground services to the entire aviation experience. He shares updates on expanded training programs that now reach flight crews, maintenance personnel, and administrative staff throughout the industry. The cultural change you initiated has transformed how we think about customer service at every level of operation, Captain Wilson explains. This isn't just policy compliance anymore. It's professional excellence. Dr. Patricia Moore, the child psychologist who was a passenger during the original incident, joins their conversation with research findings that validate the transformation. I've been tracking the psychological impact of discrimination prevention, training on both employees and customers, she reports. The data shows remarkable improvement in workplace satisfaction, customer trust, and overall service environment quality. Dr. Moore presents research findings that demonstrate how discrimination prevention training creates positive psychological effects that extend far beyond preventing negative incidents. Employees feel more confident and empowered when they have clear protocols for treating every customer with dignity, she explains. Customers feel more valued and respected, which increases loyalty and positive word-of-mouth recommendations. Darius reviews her research with interest, understanding that the transformation has created benefits beyond what anyone originally anticipated. This research supports expansion to other service industries, Darius observes. The psychological principles apply universally to hospitality, retail, healthcare, and any customer-facing environment. The conversation represents the evolution of Darius's consulting practice, from crisis management to proactive excellence development across multiple industries. Sarah Kim, the young intern who witnessed the original incident on her first day, now serves as regional coordinator for employee development programs. She approaches the group with visible excitement. Mr. Washington, I have incredible news, Sarah announces. The Department of Transportation just approved our discrimination prevention protocols as the federal standard for all commercial aviation. Your Denver incident has literally changed national policy. Darius processes this information with the satisfaction of someone who has seen personal crisis transform into systematic reform at the highest levels of government. Every airline operating in the United States will be required to implement training programs based on Madison's curriculum within 18 months. Sarah continues, the economic impact analysis shows projected savings of over $300 million annually through reduced discrimination incidents, improved customer retention, and enhanced service excellence. The magnitude of transformation becomes clear. A single incident of discrimination has generated federal policy that will protect millions of travelers and create systematic accountability across the entire aviation industry. There's more, Sarah adds, consulting her tablet. The International Civil Aviation Organization has requested our consulting services for developing global standards. Discrimination prevention is becoming a worldwide priority in commercial aviation. Darius reflects on the journey from personal humiliation to international policy influence. The path from that security office confrontation to federal legislation represents the kind of systematic change that seemed impossible 6 months ago. Madison's phone buzzes with an incoming call. She checks the display and smiles. It's Emma calling from her internship at the FAA. Madison explains. She's been working on implementation guidelines for the new federal requirements. She answers the call and puts it on speaker so the group can hear Emma's excited voice. Mom, Mr. Washington, you're not going to believe this. The FAA administrator wants to present you with the Distinguished Service Award for advancing customer dignity in aviation. The ceremony is next month at the National Aviation Hall of Fame. The recognition represents validation from the highest levels of aviation authority that Darius's experience and subsequent reform efforts have created lasting positive change for the industry. "That's wonderful," Emma Darius responds. "But remember, the real recognition comes from the thousands of passengers who will never experience what I experienced because of the systems we've built." "I know," Emma replies. "That's exactly what I told the administrator. The award isn't just for one person. It's for everyone who chose transformation over retaliation, education over punishment, and systematic change over individual revenge." After Emma's call ends, the group walks toward Darius's departure gate for his flight to Washington, D.C., where he will testify before Congress about expanding discrimination prevention requirements to all transportation modes. The terminal environment demonstrates the profound changes that have occurred since that day 6 months ago. Employee interactions reflect genuine respect and professional excellence. Customer satisfaction is visible in relaxed, positive atmospheres. Digital systems provide seamless verification without creating opportunities for subjective discrimination. Darius Madison says, as they reach his gate, "I have something personal to share." She pulls out a framed photograph showing Emma receiving her college scholarship at a ceremony attended by airline executives, government officials, and discrimination prevention advocates. Emma wrote her scholarship essay about watching her mother transform professional failure into industry leadership. Madison explains. She titled it, "When Mistakes Become Missions: How Personal Accountability Creates Social Change." Darius studies the photograph, seeing Emma surrounded by people whose careers now focus on customer dignity and discrimination prevention. She's going to continue this work. Madison continues. Emma wants to expand discrimination prevention beyond aviation to healthcare education and social services. She believes the principles we've developed can transform any industry that serves diverse populations. The conversation highlights how the transformation has inspired the next generation to build upon the foundation of systematic change that began with personal crisis. Dr. Moore adds her perspective on generational impact. Emma represents thousands of young professionals who are entering service industries with customer dignity as a core value rather than an afterthought, she observes. The cultural change you initiated is becoming institutionalized through education and career development. Captain Wilson shares similar observations from aviation training programs. New pilots, flight attendants, and ground service personnel now receive discrimination prevention training as standard curriculum, he reports. What was once crisis management is now fundamental professional competency. As Darius prepares to board his flight, he reflects on the journey from personal humiliation to industry transformation. The morning of the Denver incident, I was traveling to present quarterly consulting findings to an airline board, he recalls. Today, I'm traveling to present to Congress about systematic discrimination, prevention across all transportation modes. The scope of impact exceeds anything I could have imagined. Madison nods, understanding how personal crisis can generate exponential positive change when handled with strategic vision and commitment to justice. Your choice to demand transformation rather than revenge created opportunities none of us anticipated, she reflects. My failure became my mission. Your crisis became our catalyst for systematic reform. Sarah Kim adds her perspective as someone who witnessed both the original incident and the subsequent transformation. What impressed me most was watching you choose education over punishment, systematic change over personal satisfaction, she observes. That decision created lasting impact that will protect countless future travelers. The boarding announcement for Darius's flight provides a perfect demonstration of the new protocols. The gate agent uses digital verification to confirm his chairman's circle status, instantly provides exceptional service with genuine warmth, and treats every passenger with dignity, regardless of their ticket class. Welcome aboard, Mr. Washington, the agent says. We're honored to have you traveling with us today, and we want you to know that the service excellence you experience reflects the systematic changes you helped create throughout our industry. Thank you, Darius replies. But please remember that every passenger boarding this aircraft deserves that same level of respect and professional service. Excellence means universal dignity, not exclusive treatment. As Darius boards the aircraft, Madison, Sarah, Dr. Moore and Captain Wilson watch through the gate windows, understanding that they're witnessing the continuation of transformation that began with crisis and evolved into comprehensive reform. The flight attendant greeting passengers demonstrates the cultural change that has occurred. Each interaction reflects genuine respect, professional competence, and commitment to customer dignity that extends far beyond minimum service requirements. Your seat in the chairman's circle cabin is ready, Mr. Washington, the flight attendant explains. But more importantly, our entire crew has completed the discrimination prevention training program, and we're committed to ensuring every passenger feels valued and respected throughout their journey. Darius settles into his seat, opens his laptop, and begins reviewing testimony he will present to Congress about expanding discrimination, prevention, requirements to rail bus, and maritime transportation. The document outlines systematic approaches for preventing discrimination across all transportation modes based on lessons learned from aviation industry transformation. The recommendations include mandatory training standards, real-time verification technology, systematic accountability measures, and federal oversight requirements. As the aircraft prepares for departure, Darius reflects on the personal journey that began with humiliation and evolved into meaningful social change. 6 months ago, Madison Brooks made assumptions about his right to occupy a first-class seat based on personal bias and inadequate training. Today, those same assumptions are impossible throughout the aviation industry due to systematic reforms that protect every passenger's dignity. The transformation demonstrates how individual accountability, corporate responsibility, and systematic change can combine to create lasting positive impact that extends far beyond the original crisis. Darius's phone buzzes with a text message from his wife, Maria. Watching the news coverage of your congressional testimony preparation. Your late wife would be so proud of how you've channeled personal crisis into meaningful change for others. The Maria Washington Memorial Fund has now provided scholarships to over 200 students studying customer service excellence and discrimination prevention. The personal connection between grief mission and systematic change provides continuing motivation for Darius's expanded consulting practice and advocacy work. As the aircraft reaches cruising altitude, Darius continues working on congressional testimony that will extend discrimination, prevention requirements beyond aviation to create comprehensive protection for all transportation users. The Denver incident that began as personal humiliation has evolved into federal policy that will protect millions of travelers across all transportation modes. But the most profound transformation isn't policy or procedure. It's cultural. An entire industry now prioritizes customer dignity as fundamental professional competency rather than optional courtesy. Employees throughout transportation and hospitality industries receive training that prevents discrimination before it occurs, rather than responding to complaints after damage is done. Young professionals enter service careers with discrimination prevention as core expertise, rather than afterthought awareness. The ripple effects of transformation continue expanding across industries, academic institutions, government policies, and professional development programs. Because sometimes, the most powerful response to being looked down upon isn't looking down on others in return. Sometimes, the most meaningful justice comes from ensuring that others never experience the same injustice. And sometimes, the greatest victory is not winning for yourself, but creating systematic change that protects everyone who comes after you. 2 years later, the Denver International Airport Terminal gleams with the quiet efficiency of systematic excellence. Digital displays throughout the facility show metrics that would have been impossible 2 years ago. 847 consecutive days without discrimination. Incidents, 97.2% customer satisfaction scores, and employee confidence ratings that indicate complete cultural transformation. Darius Washington walks through the same corridor where his journey began, but everything has changed. The verification technology he demanded is now standard equipment in 2,847 airports across 47 countries. The training programs Madison developed have certified over 89,000 transportation industry employees. The federal legislation his testimony supported has eliminated discrimination across all commercial transportation modes. But today's visit to Denver represents something more personal than professional validation. Emma Brooks, now 12 years old and winner of the National Aviation Essay Contest, rushes toward Darius with excitement that reflects the profound changes in her family's circumstances. "Mr. Washington, Mom told me you were coming today for the dedication ceremony." Darius smiles at Emma's enthusiasm, remembering the scared 10-year-old who worried about her mother's career during those terrifying days 2 years ago. "Emma, congratulations on your essay contest victory," Darius says. I read, "Why Dignity Matters Lessons from My Mom's Transformation." It was remarkable writing for someone your age. Emma beams with pride that reflects confidence built through watching her mother transform professional failure into industry leadership. "I wrote about how one mistake can become the beginning of helping thousands of people," Emma explains. "Mom always says that crisis can become catalyst if you choose learning over blaming." Madison Brooks approaches wearing the badge of Senior Director of Global Customer Dignity Initiatives. Her posture radiates the confidence of someone who has transformed personal failure into international expertise. "Darius, thank you for being here today," Madison says. The dedication ceremony means everything to Emma and me, but it also represents validation that systematic change is possible when people choose transformation over retaliation. They walk together toward Gate 27, where a permanent installation will be dedicated. The Washington Center for Customer Dignity Excellence, a training facility that will serve as the global headquarters for discrimination prevention education. "Tell me about the international expansion," Darius requests, as they walk through the terminal that has become a model for airports worldwide. "We're now operating discrimination prevention programs in 23 countries," Madison reports. "The cultural adaptation has been fascinating. Different societies express respect and dignity in unique ways, but the fundamental principles remain universal." She shows him data on her tablet, displaying global implementation statistics, customer satisfaction improvements, and revenue protection metrics that demonstrate the financial value of dignity-focused service excellence. "The economic impact has exceeded everyone's projections," Madison continues. "Transportation companies implementing our programs show average revenue increases of 23% from improved customer retention and positive word-of-mouth recommendations." Emma adds her perspective with the clarity that children bring to complex situations. "Mom says that when businesses treat people nicely, those people tell their friends, and then more people want to use those businesses. It's like kindness creates more kindness." Darius nods, impressed by Emma's intuitive understanding of how dignity-focused service creates positive economic cycles. As they reach Gate 27, they find a crowd gathering for the dedication ceremony. The assembled group includes airline executives, government officials, academic researchers, and dozens of employees who have completed Madison's training programs. Patricia Williams, the airline CEO, who committed to systematic transformation during that crisis phone call 2 years ago, approaches the microphone to begin the ceremony. 2 years ago, this gate was the site of a discrimination incident that could have destroyed careers, damaged our company's reputation, and reinforced systematic bias throughout our industry. Patricia begins. Instead, it became the catalyst for the most comprehensive transformation in transportation history. Darius Washington chose education over revenge. Madison Brooks chose growth over defensiveness. Together, they created systematic change that has eliminated discrimination for millions of travelers worldwide. She gestures toward the permanent installation being unveiled, a state-of-the-art training center with interactive technology, comprehensive curriculum resources, and research capabilities that will advance discrimination, prevention, knowledge for future generations. The Washington Center for Customer Dignity Excellence will serve as global headquarters for continued research, training, and innovation in customer service equality, Patricia announces. This facility represents our commitment to ensuring that every traveler, regardless of appearance, background, or economic status, receives respectful professional service. Darius steps to the microphone, noting the profound changes in the terminal environment around him. 2 years ago, I stood in this location experiencing discrimination that made me question whether our society truly values equality and dignity. He begins. Today, I stand here knowing that systematic change is possible when individuals choose accountability over defensiveness and organizations commit to comprehensive reform rather than superficial compliance. He pauses, looking around at the crowd of people whose careers now focus on preventing discrimination and promoting customer dignity. Madison Brooks transformed professional failure into international expertise. Emma Brooks learned that personal crisis can become social mission. Patricia Williams demonstrated that corporate leadership means taking responsibility for systematic change, not just damage control. Darius's voice carries the authority of someone who has channeled personal crisis into meaningful social transformation. But the most important lesson from our experience is that justice doesn't require revenge. Real change comes from education, accountability, and systematic reform that prevents future injustice rather than punishing past mistakes. Madison approaches the microphone to share her perspective on the transformation journey. 2 years ago, I made assumptions about Mr. Washington based on personal bias and inadequate training. She begins. That failure taught me that discrimination often occurs not from intentional malice, but from cultural blind spots and insufficient education. Her voice carries the confidence of someone who has converted shame into expertise. The training programs we've developed since then have prevented thousands of discrimination incidents by addressing the root causes: unconscious bias, cultural assumptions, and inadequate recognition protocols. We've learned that preventing discrimination is more effective than responding to it after harm occurs. Emma steps to the microphone with the poise of a young person who has watched her mother transform crisis into career advancement. I want other kids to know that when their parents make mistakes, those mistakes don't have to define their families, Emma says. My mom made a big mistake, but she used it to help lots of people. Now she travels around the world, teaching others how to treat everyone with respect. The crowd responds with sustained applause, recognizing the courage required for a 12-year-old to speak publicly about family crisis and transformation. Dr. Patricia Moore, now serving as research director for the Washington Center, presents findings from 2 years of discrimination prevention program evaluation. Our research demonstrates conclusively that systematic discrimination prevention training creates positive outcomes for employees, customers, and organizations, she reports. Employee satisfaction increases, customer loyalty improves, and revenue protection exceeds program implementation costs by factors of 300 to 500%. Her research validates the business case for discrimination prevention while demonstrating the human benefits of dignity-focused service culture. Captain James Wilson, now Director of Transportation Industry Outreach, shares updates on program expansion beyond aviation. Discrimination. Prevention training has expanded to rail transportation, bus systems, maritime services, hotels, restaurants, retail stores, and healthcare facilities. He reports, the principles Darius and Madison developed for aviation apply universally to any organization serving diverse populations. The scope of transformation demonstrates how personal crisis can generate systematic change that affects entire industries and millions of service interactions. Sarah Kim, now Regional Vice President for Global Program Development, announces the next phase of expansion. We're launching discrimination prevention programs in education, government services, and nonprofit organizations, she explains. The goal is comprehensive social transformation that ensures dignity and respect in all public interactions. As the dedication ceremony concludes, Darius reflects on the journey from personal humiliation to systematic social change. The morning 2 years ago, when Madison questioned my right to occupy a first-class seat, I could never have imagined that incident would generate federal legislation, international programs, and cultural transformation affecting millions of people, he observes. But that's the power of choosing systematic change over personal revenge, education over punishment, and comprehensive reform over individual satisfaction. Madison nods, understanding how her personal failure became the foundation for career success and social impact. The training center being dedicated today will continue advancing discrimination prevention, research, and education for future generations, she adds. Emma and thousands of other young people will enter service careers with customer dignity as fundamental professional competency rather than optional consideration. Emma, now tall enough to see over the crowd, surveys the training center that bears Darius's name and represents her family's transformation from crisis to contribution. I want to work here someday, Emma announces. I want to help teach people how to treat everyone with respect, just like Mr. Washington taught us. The conversation represents generational continuation of discrimination prevention work, ensuring that systematic change will continue advancing long after the original participants retire. As Darius prepares to board his flight to Geneva, where he will present discrimination prevention standards to the International Civil Aviation Organization, he reflects on the profound transformation that began with personal crisis and evolved into comprehensive social reform. The verification technology confirms his chairman's circle status instantly. The gate agent provides exemplary service with genuine warmth. The entire interaction demonstrates dignity-focused excellence that has become standard throughout global transportation. Thank you for choosing our airline, Mr. Washington, the gate agent says. More importantly, thank you for the systematic changes that have transformed how our entire industry treats customers. Every interaction we have with passengers reflects the dignity standards you helped establish. Remember, Darius replies, every passenger deserves that same level of respect and professional service. Excellence means universal dignity, not exclusive treatment for premium customers. As his aircraft pushes back from Gate 27, Darius opens his laptop to review the presentation he will deliver to international aviation authorities about expanding discrimination prevention requirements to airlines worldwide. 2 years ago, he sat in this same seat feeling humiliated and angry about personal discrimination. Today, he sits in the same seat, knowing that his experience has created systematic protection for millions of travelers globally. The transformation demonstrates how individual accountability, corporate responsibility, and systematic reform can combine to create lasting social change that extends far beyond the original crisis. Darius's phone displays a message from the Maria Washington Memorial Fund scholarship recipients, now working in 47 countries as customer service professionals, discrimination prevention specialists, and hospitality industry leaders. Your wife's memory continues inspiring systematic change worldwide. The personal connection between grief mission and global transformation provides continuing motivation for Darius's expanded consulting practice and international advocacy work. As the aircraft reaches cruising altitude over Colorado, Darius continues preparing testimony that will establish discrimination prevention as mandatory requirement for all international aviation operations. The Denver incident that began as personal humiliation has evolved into global policy that will protect millions of travelers in every country where commercial aviation operates. But the most profound transformation transcends policy and procedure. An entire generation of service industry professionals now prioritizes customer dignity as fundamental career competency rather than optional courtesy. Systematic discrimination prevention has replaced reactive complaint management across multiple industries and dozens of countries. Educational institutions now require discrimination prevention courses for business hospitality and public administration students. The cultural change initiated by personal crisis has become institutionalized through education policy and professional development that will continue protecting human dignity for decades to come. Because sometimes the most powerful response to being looked down upon is creating systematic change that lifts everyone up. Sometimes the most meaningful justice comes from ensuring that future generations never experience the discrimination that previous generations accepted as inevitable. And sometimes, the greatest victory is not winning for yourself, but transforming entire systems to protect the dignity and rights of everyone who comes after you. The Denver incident ended. The transformation continues. Have you witnessed discrimination in public spaces? Have you experienced moments when someone made assumptions about who you are or what you deserve based on your appearance, background, or circumstances? Your experiences matter. Your voice can drive change. Your choices can create transformation. Document discrimination safely. Use your phone to record incidents, but prioritize your personal safety and the safety of others. Evidence creates accountability and supports systematic change. Speak up when possible. Challenge discrimination. When you witness it, support targets of bias and advocate for dignity in your daily interactions. Silence enables continued harm. Support businesses and organizations that demonstrate inclusive practices. Use your economic power to reward companies that prioritize customer dignity and systematic equality rather than minimum compliance. Share your story. Comment below about your experiences with discrimination or transformation. Your personal account could inspire others and contribute to continued cultural change. Get involved in systematic change. Contact your representatives about discrimination. Prevention policies. Support organizations working for civil rights and social justice. Volunteer with groups providing dignity. Education in your community. Choose transformation over retaliation. When you experience injustice, consider how your response could create positive change for others, rather than just personal satisfaction. Remember, real change happens when good people refuse to stay silent, when individual accountability generates institutional transformation, and when personal crisis becomes systematic catalyst for protecting everyone's dignity and rights. The world changes when we choose to lift each other up instead of tear each other down. What would you have done in Darius's situation? How will you respond to discrimination when you encounter it? What systematic changes do you want to see in your community, workplace, or society? Let us know in the comments below. Share this story if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more content about turning challenges into positive change and transformation. Because every person has the power to choose between perpetuating injustice and creating systematic change that protects human dignity for everyone. The Denver incident ended. Your opportunity for transformation begins now.